And now back to Creekside Sports with Daniel Shirley and Steve Norris.
Welcome back. Daniel Shirley, Steve Norris, alongside, joined right now by Graham Tuck of the Mayhem. How you doing, bud?
Hey, doing
It's good to see you. Oh, hold on, wrong mic. There we go. How you doing?
Doing good. Thanks
Sorry
for having
that.
me.
Yeah, it's great to have you here, and a lot going on. I mean, you guys have had a busy stretch of games, haven't you? Now you get a little bit of a break.
Yeah. We had a game at home on Black Friday, and that game was our 5th game in 8 days, which is
That's
tough
a lot.
stretch.
Yeah,
especially coming back from the start of that 5 games in 8 days was our return back to Macon after a month on the road. So things have finally calmed down a little bit. Only had the one game last weekend on Black Friday, and then just one game this weekend. So it's a much needed break for all the players and for everybody involved, honestly.
5 games in 8 days. They don't do that very much in any level of hockey, just because of how much it takes out of these players to play these games. Looking at the standings right now, you guys are 8th, tied for 8th with Quad City in the standings. You've been 7th, you've been 8th. Obviously, you want to be in the top 8 to get in the playoffs. But it feels like there's progress right now with what you've seen. Is that what you've seen?
Yeah, and I think the most the best thing that you saw out of that 5 and 8 was the fact that they were finally able to string together 2 wins,
right?
And they looked good doing it too. Both at home,
they won the 2 home games.
They did win the 2 home games against Fayetteville and against Knoxville on the 23rd and 24th, which that was the first time all year that the team had put together 2 straight wins. And obviously, if you want to be successful at any level of sports, you got to be able to win consecutive games.
Right.
It's just you're not going to make a deep run if you can't win 2 games, 3 games, if you can't string together solid performances. So unfortunately, it was followed up by 2 losses last week, but hopefully we've got some reinforcements coming in this week. The team's a little banged up. The injury bug's got us hard. The call-up bug has got us. So it's going to be a big weekend next weekend. Obviously, only the 1 game against Pensacola this weekend, but next weekend against Peoria, 3 games in 3 days is massive.
Same team, 3 straight days. That's amazing. Like you said, again, coming up Friday at Peoria or at Pensacola, sorry, and then next Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 3 games versus Peoria, and obviously we'll talk a lot about that next week with you. But Peoria is number 2 in the standings. Pensacola's 10th, so there's a chance to get a win over Pensacola and move up in the standings a little bit. Graham Tuck's joining us here on the show. You mentioned the line, and you kind of told me this beforehand. You guys are shorthanded. Your front line is all up in the ECHL. How about that?
Yeah, and this is the kind of thing that you're going to deal with when you're playing minor league sports. We've got 3 forwards up in the ECHL right now. Patrick Marcinkiewicz is in Atlanta with the Gladiators. Jake Goldowski, one of the alternate captains, is in Tulsa with the Oilers. And then Alex Cohen just last week got called to Orlando for the Solar Bears. So that is 3 of our top forwards that are getting called up to play at the next level, and we don't know when or if they're going to be back. So
is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's the kind of but that's the kind of thing that every team deals with.
Sure.
So it's really a true next man up mentality, and with a team that's as young as we are, I think we've got 14 rookies out of our maybe 20-man roster. So it really is a test to see what guys are made of and who's going to be able to produce. And I think that this week is going to be. We've seen some of these rookies play really well. Zach Tyson is leading the team in goals. He's been on an insane run over the last month or so. And a couple of our other top point getters are also rookies. So we've been able to produce. It's just a matter of getting it done night in and night out.
Right. No doubt about that. You mentioned you don't know when or if they'll be back. I mean, I was going to ask you, how long are they gone, right? Is it a 10-day thing, or, do they sign them for like a week and then they can just keep signing them? Is that how it works?
So sometimes, yes. So there are 2 different types of contracts that players can sign when they're in the minor leagues. There are PTOs, which is professional tryouts, and so those are for a set amount of games, and those games count against the tryout whether they're in the lineup or not. So they're signed for, be it 4, 5. It's like a 10-game contract in the NBA.
Okay.
So it's kind of like that, but it's typically for less games at this level because you play less. So like for us, we're playing 2 or 3 times a week on the average. So, but the case for what all of our guys are in those ECHL teams, they're on standard player contracts, which means that they are signed to that team until that team decides they don't want them anymore.
Wow.
So whether it be they saw something out of them at this level that they really liked and they want to add them to that, or maybe the ECHL teams, all of those teams are NHL affiliated or AHL affiliated. So maybe their AHL team had a guy go down, or the NHL team had a guy go down and they had to call someone up from the AHL.
Right.
So then there's a spot on the ECHL that needs to be filled. That's the case for all of our guys right now. So, and all of them are playing pretty well at the ECHL level right now. So who knows? They may be back by the end of the calendar year. They may make a name for themselves with those teams in the ECHL. And obviously, that's what you want to see. Is that's what these guys are in it for? Is to to advance their professional playing career.
Well, and it's good for them, and it's good for you guys, because you can say, well, look, we had these guys. Look what we did with them, helped them get to the next level, and then you can find other players who want to play for y'all when that's playing out. You did have a Player of the Week this week. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we talked about it before. Josh Boyko came into the season as our number one goaltender. He went down at the start of that month-long road trip with an injury. He's still out. It's been a little while now. And over the course of that road trip, it was pretty much exclusively Bailey Birkin that was in net. And he was the goalie of record for 7 straight games. And obviously that's a long stretch.
That's a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot physically. So when we came back home, we signed a kid from the league, the FPHL, which is where we get our call-ups from. He had been playing with the Carolina Thunderbirds, and then he got called up by us, and he played in 3 straight games over 3 days, went 2-0 at a goals against average of below 1, and he had a shutout. So, yeah, he well-deserved Player of the Week for him, and he's been our goalie since then. He started both games last week, obviously 2 losses, but he played well in both of them. So, obviously, what you're seeing it's good to have somebody to take the load off. You can't just ride one guy every game and expect to get results night in and night out, because it's just taxing.
It's a lot. There's no doubt about that.
You know how the Braves will send down like a pitcher that needs to be rehabbed or something like that, or a player? Does the NHL ever do that? Do they ever send guys down to the Macon type level? Does that ever get to that?
So you don't really see it coming all the way down to this level, but there was a case earlier this year. The Penguins' starting goaltender at the start of the year was Tristan Jarry, and he had a really rough start. He got sent down to their AHL affiliate, the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and just on a conditioning stint. So most of the time when you see that happen from an NHL team, they're just sending guys down to the AHL level. If that kind of play happens in the ECHL, most of the time they're just getting cut. They're not getting sent down or anything. Right? Yeah, because our guys can get called up to the ECHL like we talked about.
Yeah.
The ECHL can't send anyone down to us because we're not technically affiliated with any of those clubs. So they just get cut or waived or whatever. And then if our coaching staff sees a guy that's just floating out there in the free agent pool for the ECHL, and they think that there's a good chance that guy might want to come here and play, they'll try to scoop him up.
You can scoop him up. And I mean, it's just constant. And
yes.
It's funny. I love getting your emails, but it's like, there's an email from Graham. There's another roster. It's almost a daily thing, isn't
Almost,
it?
yeah. And we had Dave on at the start of the year. He came in and talked with you guys.
Yeah.
And he said, we're going to make roster moves until we're satisfied with what we see on the ice. And I think we're 5-7-1 right now, 5-8-1.
5-8-1, yeah.
So, yeah. So, obviously not too pleased with what you're seeing. And you saw it the week that we swept the homestand against Fayetteville and against Knoxville. No roster moves that week, heading into the road trip against Roanoke and then coming back here for Pensacola. No roster moves because we played well in those 2 games. So, but now after losing to Pensacola last Friday and giving them just their 3rd win of the season, you got to make some moves, especially because we had a guy go on injured reserve. We had another guy get called up after scoring 2 goals in the 3rd period against Pensacola. So it's kind of a fine line because you've got guys that are performing well, but next thing you know, they could be moving up.
They could get, like you said, you had 3 forwards called up at the same time. It's wild. So tell us a little bit about what's coming up. Again, road game this week, but next week, anything for fans to look out for?
Yeah, next week is a huge week for us. It's our first weekend this season that we've got 3 home games. So we've got Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday afternoon, all against the Peoria Rivermen. So Friday night is video game night. That one's going to be really fun. We've got a ton of cool activities planned and just fun videos, things like that. And then Saturday is one of our biggest themes of the year, which is Grinch Stole Hockey. It's kind of our holiday-themed game, and there is a really big twist and surprise planned for that one. So
Daniel Shirley showing up?
No. I'm the Grinch. You haven't heard?
That's what I'm talking about. Stay with me, Daniel.
So that one will be fun. We've got specialty jerseys for that one.
That'll be good.
I'm pretty sure there's a post-game skate as well and a jersey auction. So pretty much any night that we wear specialty jerseys this year, fans will get the chance to bid on the game-worn jerseys after the game, which is
cool.
which is always a fan favorite. And then on Sunday we've got another Salute to Service game, all against Peoria. So that'll be a really good weekend to come on out and have a good time. You got 3 chances in 3 days, so whatever works with your schedule.
It should be a blast, and we'll talk about that next week as well. Graham Tuck joining us here on the show. Graham, we appreciate your time as always. Thanks for doing this. Our Mayhem in the Morning segment.
Mayhem in the Morning,
We always
baby.
love our
Happy to
Mayhem
be
in the
here,
Morning
guys.
segment.
Yeah.